Notice the availability of movement between your skull and your lower jaw.
Sorry, I love the conversation.
Listen to your contact with the floor. Scan yourself.
Spotlight.
Oh, sorry, I'm right next to them, aren't I? I've got to... Yes. So notice how your right leg is contacting the floor. The heel, your calf, your thigh, and your left leg. Heel, the calf, make the contact in the same place on your left leg as it does on your right. Your thigh. Very gently roll your right leg a little inwards and a little outwards. You feel a changing pressure across your right heel. And your toes point a little inwards, and then you let your leg roll outwards. Let's notice where you feel the movement in your hip joint between your leg and your pelvis. Can you roll over your heel in a way that draws your sensing to where your leg, thigh bone meets your pelvis? And then leave your right leg be quiet and roll your left leg a little inward and a little outward. Notice how is it to do this with your left leg? Does your heel contact the ground on the same places on your left leg as it did on the right? Is your left hip joint clearer or less clear than your right? And let your legs rest. Roll your head a little right and left. So what questions can you ask yourself about how you're rolling your head? Maybe the questions that we're talking about using that give you feedback, the sensory sensations. Hopefully you're not feeling pain as you roll your head. Where do you feel a change in pressure? When and where do you feel a sense of resistance? So you're rolling of your head smooth, or is it jerky? Is it reversible? Do you feel you have options of different pathways for rolling your head? Or is it always rolling in the same groove? What's your facial expression like? You know how facial expression is often so habitual. It feels strange when we do something else. And what does the rolling of your head connect with through your skeleton? Please leave that. Roll yourself to sitting. Just notice how you roll and how you come to sitting this afternoon. And sit for a moment, side sitting. Just notice the configuration of your legs, that your one foot is, the sole of one foot is near the other knee. And then can you flip your legs over so you sit with your legs side sitting in the other direction? And then go back. So, a few different ways of how people are doing it around the room. So some people, their feet leave the floor. Try that way. Some people lengthen their legs, so they get longer on the floor in front of them, and sweep the legs the other side. Okay? And some people simply leave the feet where they are, pick the knees up and go to the other side. Can you think of another way of taking your knees to the other side? I'm not going to tell you. I think. Can you? Oh, if you can. Yes, you're telling me you can. Sorry. Okay, do it. So you're doing a little of two at the same time. A little bit of sliding the feet and a little bit, using the upper body and tilting the knees. Oh, there's another one. There's one's just appeared. Walking them is another. Several of you have just found another pathway that takes the feet underneath them. So pelvis leaves the floor, the pivot on the knees, and there you are again. So do that one a few times. Now, how does that relate to what we did this morning? Does it?
Yes, it does, because we were going here forward, and then we were moving up. Weight onto the knees and then weight back.
Yes. And we were sliding the hands forwards. So try sitting cross-legged, side sitting, and sliding your hands forward now. See if it's got easier. Yeah? Quite a few of you weren't able to do that this morning. Does it feel easier? So, as Moshe, words out of the master's mouth, what's the difficulty? What's the difficulty, he says. But it's difficult until you know what to do, or what you were doing, or you suddenly come across an unexpected outcome, a surprise. Yeah? Okay, could you please come? So notice how your legs are now in this side sitting position. Yeah? Could you please stand up? Now, some of you had your knees to the right and some of you had your knees to the left. So that makes it a little more complicated. If you have a favorite direction, go that way, but reverse the directions I give you. I'm going to give the directions for going to the right. Please stand. Put your feet a little bit wider apart than you would normally stand. And listen before you do. You're going to put your right hand on the floor, somewhere behind you, in a way that you could keep your feet where they are, but flop your knees, which means not stiffen them. So soften your legs so you come to the ground and sit, in side sitting. If your right hand's down, it's likely your knees will go to the right. Can you come back up? And try it to the left. Left hand down? Yes. Okay. And can you come back up? Great. Okay.
That didn't hurt.
And you'd hurt your hip this morning, huh?
I've got it messed up. It doesn't hurt to go left.
Great. So, keep your feet widely spread. And could you put your hands on the floor in front of you? And where you put them, I know you've done the 4-point series, but we're going to play with this a little bit. So put your hands on the floor, somewhere where you can lean on them. Your legs can bend. You don't want straight legs, but your pelvis is up in the air, and you lift and lower your pelvis a little bit. So your knees will bend a little bit more, and then maybe unbend a little bit as you lift your pelvis towards the ceiling. Okay, stand up and rest a minute. You know, I can still be surprised. I obviously haven't seen the world yet because I can still be surprised by what people do. I'm now amazed. Moshe had 220 people in the Amherst training, and they would have all been doing different things. What I saw here, just in that little, everyone was doing something different. Now, maybe there's a couple of you that throughout the room that was doing similar things, but that's what you're going to find as you start teaching classes. Did you find that? Did anyone have that taught a lesson between segments? Did you teach it to 2 people? Yeah? Did you find they did different things? Yeah. Good. So you know the experience. So this is one thing you can do. You just stop. You regroup. Okay. Now, could you bend your knees, put both hands on the floor again, keep your knees bent, and raise and lower your pelvis. So it's not about lowering your pelvis to the ground. Actually, your knees will bend more. Lower your and then lift it. That's great. Okay. Good. Stand up again. Next time you put your hands down, you're going to put them in front of your right foot, but hands more either side of your right foot, but forwards of your right foot. So could you do that? And the next instruction will guide you where to put your hands. You want to lift, raise and lower your pelvis a little bit so that as you do, your right knee comes between your arms. So it's an asymmetrical movement. Just your right knee. So can you keep your heels on the ground? Is that possible? So maybe you want to listen to how far away your hands are from your feet, if it seems totally impossible. Let your head hang. That's it. Between your arms. And your weight is on the palms of your hands. And your knee comes between your arms. Your right knee comes, yes. That's it. Let your head hang. Just notice the speed you're choosing to go at. Okay. Lie down and rest a moment. So that's a moment. Roll yourself to the side, observing how you roll, what shape you make, what pathway you take, and bring yourself back up to standing. And do the same thing. Put your hands in front of your left foot. Spread your feet a little wider apart than usual. Yep. Hands in front of your left foot so that when you lower your pelvis, you can bend, your left knee will be directed between your arms, and then lift your pelvis again. Just several times. And then bring your hands back to the floor in the middle. Not too far in front. It's not your 4 points. It's a different lesson. And raise and lower your pelvis. Can you keep and see if it's possible to keep your heels on the ground. So do less. Much less. Okay. Leave it. Lie on your back and rest again. Please roll over and come up onto your hands and your knees. First of all, just explore the distance between your hands, the distance between your knees, the distance between your knee and your hand on the left side, the knee and your hand on your right side. And then slowly begin to move. Your feet are long, so your toenails are on the floor. Begin to move your pelvis backwards in the direction of your heels and return. And return. So can you let your head hang down as you do that? And as you come back, lift your head up a little bit. Feel the shape that your back is making, what's happening in your hip joints, in your lower back, your breathing. And pause a moment. Pause any way you like. Go down into, baby pose or sit or whatever's comfortable for you. And come back up onto your hands and knees. So here's the catchword. Begin. Begin to move your right knee forward and on the floor. And as you move your right knee forward, move your pelvis backwards as if to sit on your heels. So you're sliding your right knee forward. Right knee stays on the floor and it slides. And then you come back, forwards. Your right knee slides on the floor forwards. And while your knee is sliding forwards, you move your pelvis backwards towards your heels. Try and take your pelvis directly backwards. So as you begin to move your right knee forwards, if at a certain moment, if your right knee goes further forwards, your pelvis will want to start going sideways. So you can let it, but at the beginning, see if you can explore that territory when your knee goes forwards and your pelvis is going straight backwards in the direction of to sit on both heels, except there's no right heel there anymore. But don't push it. So at the moment when you feel it's beginning, you're beginning to feel that resistance, let your pelvis move sideways towards sitting on the floor to the right of your right leg. And then come back. Each time you come back. And try the same thing with your left knee. So you have your weight on both knees, both hands. You slide your left knee forwards while you take your pelvis backwards. And the first part of the exploration is to find how to explore. Can you take your pelvis directly backwards while your left knee goes forwards? And when's the moment where you've used up all the freedom, but before it gets painful, where you need to change pathways, take an alternate route, so to speak. Okay, rest a moment. Please come back onto your hands and knees. This time, join your legs together, your knees, your feet. First of all, sit straight back, move your pelvis backwards to sit towards your heels. And lower your head, let your head really hang. So you're giving up the work in your neck extensors as you move your pelvis backwards to sit towards your heels. And then just gently, softly raise your head as you come forwards again. So your knees are together, feet are together, touching, knees touching, feet touching, knees touching, feet touching. Now, the next time you're forwards, as you go, keeping your legs touching, as you move your pelvis backwards, could you slide your right knee forwards? And then come back. Next time you go backwards, slide your left knee forwards. Now keep your pelvis backwards with both knees together. So keep your pelvis backwards, close to your heels. Keep supporting up on your hands so you're not collapsing onto the ground completely, but your pelvis is as close as you can to your heels. And from here, could you slide your right knee a little forwards and back? Just a little. It's a creep, so to speak. And then, so you come back to sitting on your both heels again, and then try and creep your left knee forwards a little bit. Continue doing that. Your pelvis is close to your buttocks. To your heels. Pelvis is close to your buttocks. Yep. Yep, Stephanie. Your pelvis is very close to your buttocks. So keep your pelvis lowered to your heels. Now as you slide your right knee and your knees together, as you slide your right knee forwards, can you move your pelvis to sit to the side of your right leg, but really keeping your pelvis as low as you can. And then coming back up over your legs, over your heels, and taking your pelvis to the floor to the other side as your left knee slides forwards. And just notice, is there any tendency for your head to move in the direction of one armpit? Had you noticed that? Some yes, some no. It's okay. So really feel the contact between your legs, the contact across your calves, the sliding of one leg on the other. Okay, and let it go. Roll onto your back or any comfortable position and take a rest. Please roll yourself back up onto your hands and your knees. And bring your knees and your feet together. Take your pelvis backwards towards your heels. And as you do, can you slide one knee forwards and sit your pelvis towards the floor of the side of the leg that's moving forwards, and then come back up and go take your pelvis to the other side as you bring your other knee forwards, and gradually begin to make this like a scissors-like movement of your legs. One knee slides forwards relative to the other, your pelvis sits down to one side. Can't they? Well, you've got the direction. You go as best you can. No, they don't stay together. They're sliding relative to one another. See if you can not do that. Can you make it a little faster? And so as you make it a little faster, how do you make it faster? You think of the movement of your pelvis, the arc it makes in space, the shape that your back makes. Are you thinking of your feet, or your knees, or your pelvis? What would it be like to link them, to connect them together? So that as you lift your pelvis, you're pivoting on your knees and sliding them at the same time. Great. Okay, leave it, lie on your back and take a rest. Please roll yourself up to sitting. And then onto your hands and knees. And now this time, come up onto your knees. Done this lesson before? Okay, spread your knees comfortably wide. Okay, maybe they ought to be spread, maybe they ought to be together. You can play with the distance. Now, so your pelvis is in the air, your head is towards the ceiling, you lift, you stand on your knees. Your knees without your hands. Stand up on your knees. And if you want to stay on the floor, that's fine too. So from this position, could you put your right hand somewhere on the floor to the right of you, pivot on your knees so that your feet move to the left, and sit down. Sit your pelvis down on the floor to the right of your right leg. And then come back up again. So you've got to remember.
Is anyone else getting a bit hot?
I've taken clothes off.
Yeah, is the heating getting a bit much? So I'm finding it a bit hard to breathe.
Oh, I'm not that hot. Yeah, it's much cooler down there. So put your right hand on the floor, your palm on the floor, somewhere to the right of you. And then sweep your feet to the left on the floor. Take your head forwards in space. Take your head forwards in space. Put your hand on the floor, sweep your feet to the left, and bring your bottom down to kiss the floor. To the right of your right leg. Feet to the left. And pelvis to the right. So where you put your right hand hugely influences where you're able to move in space and how you feel the floor supports you. Okay, come back up. Onto your knees. Try it on the left side. Maybe it'll make left sense to the right side of your brain. Put your left hand on the floor. So be vertical to begin with. Be vertical. Spread your knees a little bit. Okay. To the side. Put your left hand on the floor to the side. Okay. Sweep your feet to the right and lower your pelvis. There you go. And come back. Okay, and keep doing that. Once to one side, once to the other side. And eventually you might find that you don't even need your hands. That you could do a small swing with your pelvis and your trunk. Lift your butt in the air and sweep your legs underneath you to the other side. So you're great. Your knees will probably separate a little more. They don't have to. They can be. You can do this. As Martina's showing, you can do this with your knees together. And you can also do it with your legs apart. Can you do it with your legs apart, knees apart now, Martine? Think of your feet. That's it. Pivot on your knees. That's it. Feel what happens through the length of your spine. In the circling around the floor, you were talking this morning about the side bending and the turning and the rounding. Does this action involve some of that? And if it's difficult, keep your hands on the floor. You don't have to lift your hands up. Okay, take a rest on your back for a moment. Bend your knees, stand your feet. Bring your arms on the floor somewhere near your head, above your shoulders. Long, Mm-hmm. You sweep your arms, your left arm overhead, your right arm down to the side, roll your head, fold, tilt your knees to the right and come up to side sitting. Mm-hmm. Can you flip your knees over to the other side? Lie down on your back. And go around over your back and come up to the other side. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Change directions. Be mindful of your neighbor. And are you changing your knees, changing your legs over by taking your knees towards the ceiling or by moving your pelvis higher over your legs? Can you do it both, either way? Your legs are long when you're on your back. Sorry, bent when you're on your back. So you come up to sitting, and then there's endless possibilities of how you change your legs over, depending on where you arrive when you come to sitting. You can lift your pelvis off the floor and pivot on your knees so your feet go in the other direction and go back to the other side. Or you can tilt your knees towards the ceiling, making your feet pivot on the floor and your knees change over to the other side and go down. Okay. Next time you come up to side sitting, can you pause there? If your knees are to the right, lean on your right hand behind you or somewhere near your right knee. Bring your left hand. See, now I have to actually do it. I've got my consent. Yes, that's right. Lean on your right hand beside you, your left arm forward, and gently begin to explore how you could use your right hand and your left hand and your whole self to move forward so that the weight went off your pelvis and onto your feet. Who said that? Don't have to keep the hand on the floor. Hand can change. If you need it, use it. But your knees, your weight is going to come onto your feet. And so once your weight is onto your feet, you could flip your knees down to the other side and roll down onto your back and lengthen again.
Brain's fried. Can you go back to at the beginning of this one?
Okay.
And it's left.
Okay, let's do another way. Everyone's frying. It's okay. So please stand up. Come forwards on your mat. Spread your feet comfortably wide. Put your right hand on the floor, somewhere behind you to the right, and see if you can flop your knees down so that you sit. Soften your legs. So once your hand finds the floor, once you get the support of the floor, your nervous system says, oh, okay, I don't need my legs now. The legs can soften and fold. Give up the work. Okay, how could you come back onto your feet? Yeah. For some it's a yeah. Others, not yet. Not yet. It will be. It will be. Okay, try the other side. And your hips might make it a little challenging for you at the moment. Just Okay, can you come back? All right. So now, let's try, because the movement's getting larger, to become aware of who's around you and all go in the same direction. Okay? So you're going to listen carefully. You're going to stand, soften your legs, put your right hand down to the floor, let your knees find the floor, sweep your arms, roll around your right side till you're long on your back, come back on the left side, and see if you come back up onto your feet and stand up.
Could you say that one more time?
So your right hand goes down to the floor. Then you soften your knees. And then you sweep your arms, lengthen on your back, fold around onto your left side. And then keep bringing your head and arms forwards. Yep, and there you are again. Okay. So now, paying attention to the timing of each other, can you do it again? But you don't really need to stand up fully. So try doing it so that you just stay close to the floor, as close to the floor as possible. Same direction, twice. Look at your neighbors, sense yourself. Timing, orientation. Okay, pause a moment, rest on your back. That's very good for a first endeavor.
Actually breakdancing now.
End of third year. And just notice how this lesson is leaving its traces, how it's influencing your system. You can bend your knees or you can leave your legs long. Please bring your arms long overhead on the floor. Now maybe you still feel your attention is oriented towards yourself. Find out if it's possible. Whatever way you can, whatever level you're able to do right now, to begin to listen to those around you. Whether it's just your row or whether it's when you can spy someone above your head or below your feet, that you're trying to find a rhythm with each other, the same timing. So you're going to begin very slowly to the left. Sweep your right arm overhead, down in the direction knees, keeping everything as low as possible. And then just flip your knees over. Don't come back up to standing. Just flip your legs over and sweep your arms round the other side on the floor. Unfold until you come on your back. And then slowly continue. Sensing yourself. Sensing others. So now we're not trying to come to stand, we're just rolling in this big circle, listening to the direction of others, the speed of others. Where can you see someone else? When's the moment in your pathway that you can get feedback about how your neighbors are going? Neighbors above you, the neighbors below you. Okay, and rest on your back. Please roll yourself to the side, one side, and come up to sitting and then up into standing. So now when you stand, you've got more visual field. People at the front have the people to the sides that you can observe. So now we're going to go to the left. Putting the left, so you need to come to the forward edge of your mat. Put your left hand down on the floor. Soften your knees. Bring yourself to the floor. Take your head to the floor. Roll down to your left side. Sweep your arms long and come onto your back. Roll over to your right side. See if you can come back up onto your feet. And keep going. So once you're on your feet, come down again, but start to look around you. Feel what others are doing. See what others are doing. We have this capacity. We are social creatures. And keep going. If you feel like you need a rest, you can stop. To find this rhythm of another, timing of another, sense another. And sense ourselves at the same time. That's good. Okay, stay standing. Notice how you sense yourself in standing. How you feel your feet on the floor. You feel taller, shorter, energized, tired. How has exploring yourself in this way, discovering, how does it linger in you? What has it resonated with? Feel like dancing? Okay, now go for a walk. Continue to sense your feet, yourself, and see what presents itself in your walk. In you. Okay, and let's just, we'll take a 10-minute break.